We all need encouragement, motivation, and inspiration in our life. Each week, Patti will interview guests who will motivate and inspire you through their unique personal and professional experiences.
I listen, my mom listens, pretty much the whole family.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
It's drastically changed my life.
All of your senses will wake up as you listen to this scrumptious podcast that is sure to tickle your eardrums. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Wake Up with Patti Catter starts now.
Hey, everybody. I am really excited to say that we have Sean Gasaway on the show today. Sean, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm here in Perdido Key, Florida for the Frank Brown Songwriters Festival, and I'm going to be here 10 days and in the fun in the sun on the beach, playing songs we wrote with about 200 other hit songwriters, so it's going to be fun times.
That is awesome. Yeah, for all of our listeners out there, Sean is a award-winning songwriter, singer, publisher, record producer, or record executive. How is that? Or both? Is it both?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And your nickname is Gasoline.
Yeah, they call me Gasoline.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming because of your last name, Gasaway.
No, I had a record label executive in Los Angeles say, man, every time you touch a song, it catches fire. So your name is Gasoline.
I can totally see that because I've seen you play the guitar.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your childhood, kind of where you grew up.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in a little town called Escatawba, Mississippi, which is about 8 miles north of the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. And I started picking around on my dad's guitar when I was around 13 or 14 years old. My dad had an old guitar in his closet that he never touched for whatever reason. And so I went in there and stole it, took it to my bedroom, and kind of just started picking around on it and figuring out how to play it. By listening to the radio, I would, learn chords on my own. And a lot of the chords I thought I was making up, like my own personal chords, they're just regular old chords. But I was telling myself that I was creating new music, even at that young of an age. And I wrote my first song at 14. It was inspired by a butter commercial. Back then, they used to have this butter commercial that came on, and it said, because it's what's in your heart that counts. That was kind of the last line of the commercial. And I was like, man, that sounds like a good line for a song. And so I kind of wrote a song that had that line or something like that line in it. And it just kind of started there. I was just a regular, late 80s, early 90s kid, loved hair band music, loved good old stone cold country music. And, my mother's side of the family were gospel singers. So, I had that enriched in me. And of course, rap was super popular. So, and it still is, but, rap was kind of growing a lot of popularity at the time. So I loved the rap music. So I was just, it was a cool time to be a teenager, was during those years, because all this, authentic and really great music was presented to us, and so it kind of really shoved itself down in my heart, if I could say it like that, and gave me a great foundation to work with when I started writing songs.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, did you have the 80s mullet?
No, my hair's too curly. I even had a rat. My mom let me have a rat tail one time, but it looked like a little piggy tail because it wouldn't grow long. It just kind of hung up there with the rest of my hair. The girls back then would like to pull on it and twirl their finger in it, because it was curly. But no mullets. I just if I let my hair grow out, it looked like an afro. So I had to, and I still wear it short to this day. I just can't let it grow out. It's just my mom's side of the family has real curly hair like that, and I was struck with it. My brother, on the other hand, he got my dad's side of the family's hair, which is straight as a board. My brother could have the cool. My brother was a skateboarder, so he had the the long bangs and the skater haircuts. I could have never pulled that off. I wasn't lucky enough to have that kind of hair.
So you go through teenage years in the best, in my opinion, some of the best years ever in history. And so I assume you're going through high school. Are you thinking, I'm going to be a traveling singer and I'm going to become famous? I mean, did you ever have those thoughts?
No, it was more of, and it's kind of where our generation really can relate to the youth of today. I was being in South Mississippi, there's not a whole lot of things to do. My dad was a self-employed. He was a Marine, and when he come out of the Marine Corps, when I was little, like baby little, when he got out of the Marine Corps, he took a stab at working at the shipyards. I mean, that's really the only places you had to work down there at the time was, building a ship or something on the water. Mm-hmm. And, it just wasn't his cup of tea. So his gift was carpentry. He could build, do anything with wood, and so he took a gamble and started his own business. And we were, I remember many a days we ate either deer meat or fish because, there wasn't a whole lot of money being made at the time. And, but he always provided for us, And so when I was a teenager, my fear was, man, am I going to have to go through all this, and there's really not a whole lot of places to work. So I didn't think about music much at all at that moment. I was trying to figure out more of how the heck am I going to get out of this town? And, what am I going to do from there? And so I was still writing, and some of my buddies and I were getting together and playing a little music, but we were doing it for the girls. I'm not going to lie. We had no intentions of being these big rock stars. We liked sitting by the campfire, playing our guitars and seeing some pretty girl look at us and smile. That was kind of what we were up for. But it kind of grew from there. When people in our community and in our hometown and even in our rival hometowns, they would come see us play and say, man, we really like what y'all are doing, So it kind of grew from there. And when I really started thinking, man, there might be something to this, but most of us, as soon as we all got out of high school, there were a few of us that went to college, but a lot of us learned a trade. I learned how to be an electrician. And so I went to work at the shipyard, because that was basically the only source of income. If you wanted to have anything, you had to go work. And so, so we all did that, and we played our music in the evenings, and so, escaping the shipyard was our main goal. We really didn't care how we did it. That's the God honest truth right there, if I could say it any better. But
when did you start playing on stage?
In around 94 is when we actually put a band together, me and my friends, and it was called The Union. And we started playing clubs and little nightclubs, and we had all just turned, old enough to get in these clubs, you know what I'm saying? But we started playing the clubs, and we went from playing in front of, I remember playing at a place called Hurleywood. It was in Hurley, Mississippi. And so instead of calling the bar Hollywood, they call it Hurleywood. I remember playing in this little old bar, and we only had like 6 songs that we knew, and we played the 6 songs over and over again because everybody there that was here loved it. I was like, play it again. And so we just grew our, we grew our catalog, and we started playing out and getting real popular. But, as 99% of all bands break up. That's just the way it is. You got different egos in the band. You got people wanting to go different directions with their music, and things like that. My girlfriend and I at the time, Melissa, I had started dating Melissa when we were in high school, and we kind of dated on and off all the way throughout. Well, her and I got more serious at that time, and we decided to get married, and we had a child. So, and we were still really young, but, at that time in history, and, it wasn't uncommon, down in Mississippi to be married young and have to start a family. And so I was like, man, I'm going to take a break from the band. I'll help manage, and I'll give you all my gig contacts. But I just kind of took a step away from the band thing because I wanted to focus more on providing for the family and stuff like that, And And then that band turned into another band, and that band turned into another band, and it turned into the rock group that everybody knows now called Three Doors Down.
No
and so,
way.
Yeah.
Well,
And so
that's fun.
Yeah, it is cool. So basically the old rock band, the old country rock band we had called the Union, Three Doors Down at that time, it's a different band now, but at that time, Brad, who's the lead singer of Three Doors Down, even today, Brad and Matt Roberts, who was one of the original guitarists, they came in and joined the guys that were in my band, and that's where Three Doors Down was started pretty much, kind of. And so, yeah. And we all jammed. We wrote together. We, we used to meet each other's homes and write songs and just jam. And then they would go out. I bought a little studio in my house and put it in my house. And so they'd come over and I'd record them, and, it was just all good fun times, And then they wrote Kryptonite and recorded it. And, that's history. There's your rock and roll history right there. They took off. Mm-hmm. And so, and we still write and jam and hang out together today. Most of them moved up to Nashville, Tennessee area, and we got a recording studio up there. So we do a lot of work up there now, where we live in Tennessee now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just a brief little rock and roll history for you there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never really knew their history, and it's awesome how it meshes with your history because you're just an amazing person. And
yeah, we all grew up together in the same little town, and it's to every good side there's bad. There's some tragedy in that story that I'm not going to get into today. But at the end of the day, I'm just proud that all of us have the opportunity and still have the opportunity to make music that heal people. That's the big thing.
Which is what I love about your music. You have an album ready to drop. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, just a brief backstory. I'm sorry. I was in Louisiana back in April. Had a music festival called Songs on the Bayou, and that's exactly what it was. We were playing our music right on the bayou. You couldn't get no further into the bayou unless you was in it. And waist deep in it, you know what I'm saying? And so I was at the Songs on the Bayou Festival, and I was also given a music business seminar about publishing and record label ownership for independent folks. And so they had this Bayou Music Summit is what it was called. And so I was given the seminar, and during the same festival, they were doing a concert of light, a night for veterans in that city. And so there were some veterans in town that they were honoring, and then there were two guys from California, Mike Riccio and Daniel Kamzan, Kamzan. I always have trouble saying his name. I want to say Kasman, but that's not it. It's Kamzan, Daniel Kamzan. But Mike and Daniel approached me after my seminar and said, "Man, we heard through the grapevine that you write with PTSD sufferers and wounded warriors and folks like that to help in their therapy." And I said, "Yeah, I've been really blessed to be asked to do that sometimes." And they were like, "Well, can you spare us an hour or two? We'd like to tell you our story." And I was like, "Absolutely." So we went deep in the middle of the swamp to a friend of mine's guest house. And, it sits right on the water. It's a beautiful place. And we went and sat there, and Mike and Daniel were telling me their story. They had served some together, and they become good friends. And when they got out, they kind of just stayed connected, And so they were telling me their story about their service. And the main thing that really stuck out to me was one of them said, we might have won our battles over there, but we lost our inner peace. And I thought, man, that's a powerful statement. So I said, that's the song we're going to write. And so we sat down, and it was almost like God opened up, and that's how I write, just to throw that out there. I'm just I graduated from high school. I really didn't do much at any college at all. I'm not smart enough or bright enough to really write some of the songs I write. So it comes from somewhere else, and I know where it comes from, and I've accepted that, and so, so when they said the inner peace line to me, I was like, oh my God, we got to write that. It was like God opened my heart up and just poured the words and melody and the music on paper. Just, I mean, it all just come out. And Michael and Daniel were looking at me going, holy, we wrote the song in like 30 minutes, honestly. And, and I kept verifying with them, is this a fair statement, poetically of how you see your story going? And they was like, yeah, man. It was like, they were like, man, it's like, our story right now, And so I wrote this song with them. And I asked them, I was like, what's your favorite music? And both of them was like, rock, And most people in the business knows me for country and rock and soul kind of thing, And so, and I said, okay, we'll do a rock song. I was like, who's your favorite band? And they told me, Disturbed, Five Finger Death Punch, all these great rock bands they're fans of. And I said, well, let's just write something in that vein, So this whole song just dropped out of me. And I turned my phone on and recorded it in my phone. And we were all just sitting there in amazement of how cool it was, And so about 2 weeks later, after I went back home to Nashville, I called my buddy Greg Upchurch. He's currently in the band Three Doors Down, but he's played drums for Chris Cornell. He was the drummer in Puddle of Mud when they were super successful and popular. And then he joined the Three Doors Down group. He's been with them for about 10 years or maybe 15 years now. And so I called Greg and I was like, man, I want you to hear this song. I think we can do something with it. So I sent him my recording from my phone to him. And he immediately called me back. He said, Sean, we got to record this. He said, I can hear the drums in my head on how the song needs to be. He said, let's do it. And so I reached out to a friend of mine. His name's Josh Paul. Josh is a bass player. He's like a legendary bass player. He played with Infectious Grooves, Suicidal Tendencies. Right now he's on tour with Daughtry. So, I mean, he's a hot commodity bass player. I called him. I was like, man, if you got a free day, come record this song with me. So he came in. I reached out to some other friends of mine, Chet Roberts from Three Doors Down, guitarist, Dylan Forrester, who's in the rock group Picturesque in Lexington, Kentucky. They're a hot up-and-coming band. Dylan's only like 3 years old maybe, just a young guitar phenom. And so I called all these cool cats, and we went in the studio and recorded the song Inner Peace. And I sent the recording to Mike and Daniel, and they were like, oh my God, that our story has really come to life, and I could tell at that moment, there was a moment of them being touched the day we wrote it. And then there's a separate moment the day they heard it actually recorded, and all these major rock star musicians are playing on it. You know what I'm saying? And so, I sang my ass off just to do it justice. I thought that's the least I could do, was put myself in that vein and do it. And it turned out dang good. I was surprised. I was like, man, I can do this rock thing again. I mean, I did it back in the late 80s, early 90s. It's kind of where I cut my teeth as in rock, but, to hear myself on the record, singing it, I kind of surprised myself, because I'm really hard on myself about singing, and I push myself to do the best I can. And so, so that's where Inner Peace was created, and I really didn't know what to do with it. I said, it's just one song, and there's really no follow up. And God touched my heart again. And he said, man, you're doing something, I didn't give you the song for nothing. There's a purpose for everything. And so he put it on my heart to do a whole album. And so it's a concept album, like they used to do back in the old days in rock. I remember you used to buy a rock album and read the liner notes on a vinyl record, and it kind of told a story. Every song, it was like reading a book almost. And I said, I'm gonna do something like that. I'm gonna do a concept album where half of the songs, which I call the A side, is gonna be about the lost, like Inner Peace. It's a story about these guys and what they lost. So half of the songs are gonna be about the lost, and side B, the other half of the album, is gonna be about hope and redemption. Because the biggest thing I try to tell anyone I speak with is there's hope. No matter how dark no matter where you end up, no matter how dark the place is or anything, there is hope. And you can be redeemed. You can come out of it. You can break free from it. If you put you have to believe in it, And so, so that's what my whole album, and it'll be out next year. I'm just releasing Inner Peace tonight. A or I'm releasing it now, but the album will come out later next year in 2020.
I'm really excited to hear the whole thing because I was privileged to hear your song Inner Peace, and I was floored because to all of our listeners out there, I was at a concert this past weekend and it was all country. So when you sent me that recording and it was rock, I was blown away, for one, because I wasn't expecting that to come out of your mouth. Like, it was amazing. I love rock music. And I love all sorts of music, but that song was just amazing. And I love how it's relatable to so many people too. So our veteran community, definitely it's relatable, but I do think just people with everyday struggles can relate to that song. So I love it for that too. We're getting up on time, but I'm going to put you on the spot here because I know how you love telling this story. I just would love it if you could do a quick rundown of your pork chop story, because I was I was telling Adam Bird on the Decision Hour that about your story, because I thought it was like hilarious and I love it. But if you could just give us a quick rundown on that would be fun.
Absolutely. It's a true story, 100%. Nothing fabricated about that. I was at the Cracker Barrel with my family to eat breakfast several years ago, and the waitress approached me and she said, "Can I take your order?" And I looked at her and I said, "Give me that pork chop, 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 chop." And I started moving my hands like I was dancing. And my wife and my oldest daughter were just shaking my heads they were shaking their heads like, "Oh my God, please stop." And I was sitting there, "Give me that chop, chop, chop." And my youngest daughter grabbed the salt shaker and she started going, "Season that." So we were like, "Pork chop, season that, pork chop, season that." And it was just so funny. And it was embarrassing. It did everything I wanted it to do at that moment, you know. And a few weeks later, Cowboy Troy, who is a country rap artist, Hick Hop is what we call it. He's with the group Big and Rich as well. He gave me a call and he said, "Man, I'm going to do some shows. Would you like to ride with me and do some opening performances?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I went on the road with him. And while we were on the tour bus traveling to Illinois, I looked at him. I said, "You like pork chops, Troy?" And he goes, "Man, I love pork chops." And if you don't know who Troy is, he's 6'8". He's a huge man, but he's a bear. You can hug him. He's just a great person. But he was like, "Man, I love pork chops." And I was like, "Well, let me play you this hook." And I sang it to him. And as soon as we got back home, we met up with my buddy, Michael Garvin, who is a hit songwriter in his own right. He wrote the song "Waiting for the Night" for Jennifer Lopez, for instance. Wow. Just a monster songwriter. So when we got back in town, we hooked up with Michael and we sat in a hotel room and we wrote the whole song. And it was just, it was 2 hours of just nonstop laughter. And, because we thought, man, this would be a great comedy song. We went in the studio and recorded it. And like I said, it was like a joke song, We went to the studio and recorded it with Michael. And the National Pork Board heard about it. And they went and met Troy at one of his shows in the Midwest. And, they said, "Hey, we heard the pork chop song. How can we be partners?" And, everything kind of came together. All the dots connected, and they used it in a bunch of television commercials and their radio ads. And they did these cool little YouTube videos for their advertising for their pork farmers. And it turned into something really big, and no matter what town I go to, even this weekend when we were in Virginia, I had a young lady come up to me before the show, before I even sang it. She said, "You're the pork chops guy that co-wrote it." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "My kids dance to that song in the living room every day. They know every word to it." And I'm like, "Oh man, that touches my heart."
That is awesome. What I love about you is just your whole entire story. You come up, you're this good old country boy growing up, and you pursue your love of music, and you're helping military veterans, and then you're doing fun things like your pork chop song. And I just love how you are you're probably one of the most well-balanced people I've ever met. So I appreciate you being on the show. I think that your story is really encouraging because it tells people no matter what your background is, no matter what your upbringing is, you talked about your family being hard, your dad was really hardworking, and so you come from humble beginnings, and you're just doing a fantastic job. And I love your music. I love your attitude. You're just a great example of how when somebody wants to do something and sets their mind to it, they can do it. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate it. I always tell people that my dad builds homes and I build songs. And I take that to heart, and the biggest thing, if I can end this by saying, is every one of us have some type of gift in us, whether you believe it or not. Every one of us has a purpose here, and we shouldn't let anything or anyone take that away from us. But you have to dig deep down and really believe in yourself, and have faith in something higher than what we are. And I'm not going to get real religious on y'all or nothing, but I'm just saying you got to have faith in something that's bigger than what we are, and just truly believe and know that you have purpose. You do have purpose, and so go for it. Just do it.
Thank you. Could you share your social media links with our listeners, please? Absolutely.
You can find me on SeanGasaway.com, and I spell my name like Sean Connery. That's SeanGasaway. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now you can do a search on me using my alias Gasoline. But if you just type in Sean Gasaway, it'll take you to all of my social media links. And it's SeanGasaway.com. I think I've already said that. But I'm out there on YouTube and everything. So hit the little contact button or send me a message or do whatever and say hello and let me know you're out there listening.
Thank you, Sean. And I'll be sure to post the links on all of our social media as well. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. And y'all need to wake up with Patti every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wake Up with Patti Catter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
Be sure to visit www.patticatter.com for the latest podcasts, articles, and swag. Also, be sure to follow Patti on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Patti Catter.